Welcome back to the latest edition of Diamond Star Stories. I added a few more cards this past weekend, so I'm happy to be able to have more editions on the way based on some of the cards I picked up. We're actually going to pick up with another Hall of Famer. This one is going to be Heinie Manush. Now this card is one of the easier ones you can pick up for the set. This is a copy of the 1935 edition of the card. His 1936 edition of the card does not have the W on the sleeve because he actually was moved during the off season. So that was updated to be able to reflect that he had been moved on. I believe at that time he went on to the Boston Red Sox at that moment, if I'm not mistaken. That's when he moved on. All right, so Heinie Manush wasn't always known as Heinie Manush. Heinie Manush was born George Emmett Manush. He was one of, I believe, 7 siblings, or one of 8 kids. He was born to German immigrants who came over and worked for the railroad. His father did in particular. He had 6 other brothers, all of which played baseball. One other one actually played baseball professionally and was actually part of, let's see, he was on a team, I believe in 1908, I believe, is when his brother was actually briefly in the major leagues. It was with the Philadelphia A's. I was actually correct with the year. His brother's name was Frank. I don't know if he has cards out there and exist or not. I didn't actually look it up, but obviously his younger brother, George, went on to have a pretty successful career because he ended up in the Hall of Fame. After he finished high school, he started to move across the country, moved to Iowa with one of his other brothers, and later ended up in California, where he started playing semi-pro ball and quickly moved into and signed and played minor league baseball. He played minor league baseball across 3 different leagues, including the Pacific Coast League, the Western Canadian League, and then the Western League before he was signed at that time by the Detroit Tigers of the 1920s. During that time, actually, he joined an outfield that included Ty Cobb, who was the manager, and also Harry Heilman. So that was actually an outfield that had 3 Hall of Fame players at that time, even though I think nobody knew that Manush was going to actually rise to stardom because he was a rookie at that moment. So he platooned in the outfield for a little while and later took over for Cobb when Cobb was moved on to the Philadelphia A's. He also ended up playing for the St. Louis Browns, the Washington Senators, as you see pictured here, the Boston Red Sox, the Dodgers, Brooklyn, and also Pittsburgh Pirates was where he ended up finishing his career. He's probably best known for actually keeping Babe Ruth from winning the Triple Crown in 1926. He was actually trailing Babe Ruth that day in the hitting title, but played a doubleheader and actually had a very successful 2 games and was able to surpass Babe Ruth at that point and was able to jump ahead of him to finish with a .378 batting average. Which was the only time he actually led the league in hitting. He was a 1-time All-Star in 1934 with Washington. He had better years in the 1920s when obviously there wasn't an All-Star game. He finished with a career batting average of .330, and he had over 2,500 hits and almost 500 doubles. He finished with a double total of 491. He registered MVP votes across 5 different seasons. As I mentioned, 1926 probably being his best season. He led the league in hits that year. He's led the league in hits twice in his career, doubles twice in his career, and also led the league in triples 1 time. So after his career ended, I also wanted to mention before about his career, he actually played in 1 World Series, which was with Washington in 1933, but lost the World Series at that point. So he never had the opportunity to be a World Series champion. He was originally from Alabama, actually was born in the same hometown of actually Helen Keller, which was probably the more famous of the 2 people that were from where he grew up, which was Tuscumbia, if I pronounced that correctly. I apologize for anybody watching from Alabama that could nail it down much more clearly than I can. After his career, he actually moved on to manage for a little while in the minor leagues, then became a scout, and later a coach for the Washington Senators in the 1950s briefly, which he's actually featured on a card in the 1954 Top Set as a coach. So you can actually get a Heinie Manush card from obviously the 1950s when he was no longer an active player. He earned the name Heinie just because he was of German descent, and that was often a kind of a slang word that was used to be able to describe people who were of German descent during the 1920s and 30s, so that's how he kind of got his name. He's not the only Major League Baseball player that had that nickname, but probably he's maybe the most prominent in his time. He was married, had 3 daughters, and in his retirement he started to take up golf and won a lot of amateur tournaments in the area he was from. He was eventually elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1964 by the Veterans Committee, and passed away 7 years later from complications from throat cancer. And so here we have a nice copy of the Diamond Stars Heinie Manush card, which I picked up at the Chicago Sports Spectacular back in March. It's a PSA 4 and one of the older holders. I would say the only thing that kind of takes away from the front of this card is it's a little off-centered, as you can see, from one direction to the other, but it's kind of dirty. So the surface itself probably picked up a lot of dirt over the years, and I think that probably took a lot away from the registration on the card. Other than that, it's still got pretty good edges and corners on this card. There's no significant paper loss or writing on it. The back is clearly legible, and you can definitely see this is a 1935 card just because you can see it has the stats from 1934, in which he batted .349, as you can see. So that is the Heinie Manush card. I have close-ups of this card picture closing the video. Hope you enjoyed this edition of the Diamond Star Stories, and I'll be back again next month with another chapter. Perhaps maybe it'll be one of the newer cards I picked up, or perhaps maybe it'll be one of the cards from my SGC order, which is on the way. All right, have a great one. Have a great weekend.